Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on the Masters in Community Development. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about the Master's program. My name is Michael Swack. I'm the Academic Director of the Master's Program in Community Development. And I have with me today one of our current students, Anne Lawson, and we'll be talking to her after I do about a 15-minute presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Carsey School, the structure of the master's program, which is an online program, the curriculum, financial aid, and a little bit about some of our alumni. If you have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat or in the Q&A. Either one of them is fine. And I'm also joined by my colleague today, Robin Husledge. Robin is also a graduate of the program and now works here at UNH in the master's program. I was going to say, turn your screen on, Robin, and wave to everyone. And Robin will be sort of a co-host and monitoring the Q&A and the chat and jumping in to pose some of the questions that come there. And maybe we'll ask Robin a couple questions as well. So Robin, thanks for joining today.
My pleasure. Look forward to it, Michael. Thank you.
So the Carsey School of Public Policy at the University of New Hampshire has a number of research programs. We'll talk briefly about those, but also 3 master's degree programs that are closely connected: the Masters in Community Development, the Masters of Public Administration, and the Masters of Public Policy. There are some differences, but we share some courses. We have somewhat different formats. I'm going to be focusing on our online program in community development today. The master's program in community development is an online program that uses a cohort model. What I mean by a cohort model is you generally begin the program at the same time as your fellow students, take a number of the required courses together, electives we'll share with other people. Not everyone goes through, but the core curriculum of 9 classes, which we'll cover, you go through as a cohort. What it means is you get to know people pretty well. You work with them in groups, in one class to the next, small groups, and it makes people feel more connected. The feedback we get on the cohort program is because you're taking a number of courses with the same people, you get to be friendly with them, you share experiences with them, and you study with them as well. So we believe strongly that the cohort model is a good educational model. We'll talk a little bit about the courses that you go through, the capstone, which I'll go into more detail, a set of interdisciplinary courses in management, finance, and public policy. And also we focus on both skills and tools for community development, as well as general policy issues. Let's start by looking at the curriculum for the program. There are 5 core courses that everybody takes. The Integrative Approaches to Development is a course that I teach, that I co-teach with my colleague Lee Farrow. And it's a course that really asks you to think about your theory of development. Why are you doing this work? What works? What are the practices that have worked well? It's really the course in the program that focuses on asking you to think about your theory of change, and to read and discuss other theorists who talk about what is development, what is community development, what works, what doesn't. There are also core courses in policy analysis, economic analysis for development, and then key practice courses, organizational management, and fiscal financial management for development organizations. We're going to talk about the experiential learning in more detail, but there are 4 courses in sequence in which you actually carry out a project, typically in your home community, and go through a 4-course sequence that accompanies that project that you do. Finally, you would take 3 electives. You could take more, but you'll take at least 3 electives in the program. And those electives, just a couple here: community development, finance, public safety, housing. There are a whole range of electives that you can choose from, in which you'll be taking classes with both community development students and other students in our master's programs. We talk a little bit about the capstone project because it's one really the core of the program. In the capstone project, you pick a project in your home community, often can be through your workplace. It's really something you're going to work on over 4 terms. A lot of people have questions about the projects, including, do I have to have one before I actually get into the program? And the answer is no. In fact, many people take that first term in the program to identify and really pin down what their project will be. Just to give you a sense, a project is something you could design in your workplace. It might be to start a new project in your workplace. It may be to do an evaluation of a project that you've done. It may be to implement a new lending program in solar energy or something along those lines. There's a lot of flexibility. We want people to pick something that will really engage them and really get them involved in depth in a topic that they're interested in that's actionable, something where you'll really have to think about how you do that work. We'll get into that in more detail in a second. The project starts with the initial course that asks you to collect information about your community and the project site itself, and covers issues like surveys and interviews, focus groups, stakeholder analysis. It's really where you set up your project framework, or what we call the logic model, which is what we use. Many of you may be familiar with that, but the logic model is a framework for you to develop activities, outputs, outcomes. It's a framework for developing a project. This is an example of the logic model where you list your activities, outputs, and this is the sort of thing you'll do as you're identifying and picking the project you have for the program. So outcomes, this is what you hope to achieve through your project. In the end, what are the outcomes? How will people's lives be better off? And again, there's a whole process you go through in identifying the outcomes and impacts you hope to achieve in the program. Robin, I'm going to stop here for a minute to see if there are any questions in terms of the basic outline of the curriculum.
Hey, Michael. Let's see. I guess the question is about maybe you could give more examples of capstone projects.
Yeah, so capstone projects, maybe you can as well, Robin. We have a whole page that you can look at of listings of different projects. A number of people do projects in the area of housing because housing affordability is such a big issue. It can be an initiative that looks at a local policy that may improve access to housing. It could be actually the development of a project looking into housing for the homeless and how that can be developed in your community, and what sorts of financing is needed and what sort of collaboration is needed among organizations. So housing is a big one. And another is people do a lot of projects related to small business or micro lending. How can we implement a project? Can we do it through our organization? Should we partner with a community development financial institution? There are projects in public health related to community development where people are interested in how can health projects and community development work more closely. How can we address what are called social determinants of health through looking at housing as a way of addressing health issues? So pretty wide range of projects. And again, we want you to pick something that you want to spend time on, want to learn more about, and can really focus your energy on. Yeah, anything you want to add to that, Robin?
You gave a pretty wide range. It really, we've had a lot of local projects, working with refugee resettlement populations, for example, and people from those communities that they saw the need and wanted to implement projects that would benefit their community. And we've also had people that have come from refugee resettlements and have also gone back to their original country to do their work, like Sophia, who worked with the youth in Somalia that were in need. So it really is a wide variety, and it's what's great is it's self-directed. So it's what you care about, what you see as an issue, and an area that you want to change and contribute to.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And it's broken down into a number of over 4 terms. I think Jolan Rivera, who teaches the course, said that there are like 30 different small assignments due in sequence as you develop and think about your project, but it's all related to the actual implementation of a project. So it really gives you a set of tools to do projects when you get out. Often the feedback we get at the end of the program is, what really was most helpful to you? When people say, oh, going through the project sequence really gave me a clear sense of this work and how to do it. So that's really, the project course is not only central, but it's a course that people find extremely helpful as well.
Yes.
The program itself, as mentioned, is 36 credits. It includes the core and experiential courses. The experiential is what we're calling the project courses, and the 3 electives. Again, when we say career focused, it's a very practical education. We often find employers say, this is really great. It's, when they're carrying out a project, the project is actually part of our job. Part of their job, which is really great to have that assistance while they're doing it. But I should mention again, some people look at the project as something they would do outside their job as a way of pushing their career towards a more focused area that they want to look at. So again, we work with you on your project. In addition to the project advisors, there are faculty advisors who work with you in the program and after. A lot of people look to when they look for new jobs. We send out a monthly newsletter which has job listings, and also some of the personal connections we have will often use as well. The program can be taken in as little as 14 months, although I don't want to emphasize this too much because we encourage people to take courses in a way that works for their schedules. And for that, some people it means just taking 1 course a term. We operate on what are called E-terms, which are generally 8-week sessions. The one exception is the J-term, which is just 3 weeks, but that's set aside for independent study. And so you can see a sample course plan here for people who started in the fall of 2021. It'd be very similar for 2022. And you'll see that there are core courses, the project series, and electives. And you see a sequence of courses that are over the 8-week period. And so one could start and finish in 14 months if they choose. But often people take as long as 24 months to finish the program as well. Again, we encourage you to take as many courses as you can, consistent with what you have to balance in terms of your work and your family life and those commitments. So there is flexibility in terms of taking courses when you take them, and opportunities to take elective courses at different times as well. In applying to the program, the application is pretty straightforward. It's an online application. There are deadlines for different terms, but typically we encourage people to start in the fall term because that's when most members of the cohort start. You can start, if you choose, in the January term and take an elective course, for example, just to see what it's like. But we encourage people to start in the fall term, which actually starts at the end of the summer rather than the fall. It starts in late August. But if you want to start in the spring term, we do have an application deadline, which is in about a month. The application requires a transcript from your bachelor's degree, 3 letters of reference, a personal statement in which you talk a little bit about what you hope to get out of the program, and a resume so we know a little bit about your experience. And I should say one of the really terrific things about the program is the cohort itself. That is the people who are in the program who are your classmates. It's an incredibly diverse group of people from all over the world, all over the United States, different ethnic and racial backgrounds, experience levels, age. We have people from their mid-20s to their early 60s, and it's really a wonderful group to go through. So I think really one of the strengths of the program is the cohort, your fellow students. The cost of the program, you see the tuition. This is the cost for the entire program, regardless of how long you spread it out. So if you spread it out over 14 months, you essentially pay by course, and this is what you could expect to pay. We also offer tuition scholarships. I would say probably 80% of our students who apply for financial aid, close to 100% of our students who apply get financial aid. About 80% of our applicants apply, and we have a grant, partial grant financial aid, as well as access to loans for those who need it. You'll also see a list of organizations down here where we have partnership agreements in which there are additional scholarships and fellowships available, usually in the $2,500 to $5,000 range. And in many instances, these are matched by the employer. We have information, if you're part of these, about the specific scholarships for each of these. So you should ask us if you're affiliated with any of these organizations, and we can give you more details about that. Again, we've had over 100 capstone projects in communities in 25 different countries around the world. Really interesting projects that covered the whole range we talked about. Some career outcomes. Recent graduates include Andronika Morris, who housing NOLA. Not only is she a graduate, we just hired her to teach a housing course, and she has such deep experience in it. And that was actually a terrific course that went well. And careers, you can see people work in a range of nonprofits, social enterprises, government agencies, and for-profit businesses as well. There's some information. I'll go back to this slide in a minute, but at this point, I want to see if there are any questions before we introduce Anne and talk to her a little bit. Robin, anything posted that?
Hi, Michael. Yes, I was just responding to one question regarding financial aid.
Okay.
Another question that came up was about the actual courses. Are they fully just, standard? You just read
Yeah,
the
that's a
material,
good question.
or is there interaction during the courses?
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that. So when we say the courses are online, it's actually a kind of hybrid, because there's both synchronous and asynchronous. Each of the courses, the core courses and the project course, meet for 90 minutes, depending on the course itself, either every week or every other week. So you are face-to-face via Zoom with your fellow students once or twice a week for 90 minutes. And we give the times specifically in advance so you know when to plan them. Many of those courses meet at 5:30 Eastern time. It's somewhat difficult since we have people from all over the world. Inevitably, someone ends up taking a course at 11 at night or 8 in the morning. But we generally capture by having that 5:30 to 7 o'clock Eastern time frame that works well for most people. In addition, there is the asynchronous part, that is the work that you do on your own and or in small groups, which you arrange the times where you want to meet with your groups themselves. So there's some small group projects, there's some individual work, and there's the meetings weekly or bi-weekly of the classes. So you do see your fellow students and have a chance to interact directly with them and the faculty members as well.
Thank
Is that
you,
it,
Michael.
Robin?
Yep, that's the
Okay.
only other question I have here.
Okay, great. Well, Anne, time for you to come online. Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
So welcome to Anne Lawson, who's a current student in the program. She works as an analyst for Aeris Insight. I'll let you read this. I don't have to read it out loud to you, but Anne, so let me start by asking you a couple questions, and then we can also encourage others to ask questions in the Q&A again. But tell us first, how did you hear about this program and come to it and decide that this might be a good program for you?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I heard about this program actually through an information session, which you, Michael, provided at the Opportunity Finance Network, or OFN, conference. Gosh, a couple, 3 years ago now, I believe it was. So it's
Pre-COVID, right?
yeah, so a conference gathering of practitioners in the community development finance field. And it seemed like a natural way to deepen my practice from there. So I applied after getting some information there. Thank you.
Yeah. So Anne, tell us a little bit about your project. What is it? How did you pick it? And how's it going?
Well, I've actually completed my project. Completed the 4-course project, the capstone series. My project involved standing up a knowledge resource library for young families with a child newly diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. My project partner was a community-based health center in New Hampshire. And I basically conducted research, soup to nuts, interviewing a number of people, developing a framework using the logic model, and walking through steps of a project to find out what information was going to be most useful in serving a population, basically where it can be a life-changing difference if a family is able to connect a young child with resources and developmental supports from a young age. So there's actually a strong community mandate for information like that to combat disinformation available online and so on. So my project gave me the opportunity to go really in a grassroots and ground up. In my work with Aeris Insight, I'm an analyst and I evaluate other organizations for impact and for their financial strength. Aeris is a service that offers ratings, data, and analytics for impact investors. So my project allowed me to, in a way, to flip to the other side and understand the challenges and opportunities for an organization standing up a project of their own. And I was able to participate in that, which was very rewarding.
So yeah, in your case then, your project was not directly related to your work. It was something you picked that was of interest. So that's a good example because as you know, many people pick projects that were related to their work. So let me switch gears a little bit. I had mentioned, Anne, that it's a cohort program. Can you talk a little bit about how your cohort worked and you know, how you met, and was it valuable? And
Gladly. So I would first,
reflect on that.
I guess I would first sort of springboard from what you just said, Michael. I think that probably the majority of my cohort mates were doing projects in their, either connected with their organizations or with some professional thread to them. And I would also say, before I move on to the cohort, that although the project ended up being something which had, I guess, a personal interest angle to it, going through the project series gave me a toolkit that I have since been able to deploy personally and professionally in the process of any project. So it had sort of a broader lens. But to the cohort, your question, what can I say about my cohort? A rich group of folks. In a way, the sort of the beating heart of my program experience. We it's completely online. I mean, we're looking forward to the day when we can all, meet in person. But actually, the online classes and other collaboration as in small groups, particularly or in class groups, gave us an opportunity to get to know each other over the first 14 months of the program in particular. We all stuck together like glue in different ways and supported each other, and the learnings that I got from folks across the country and from overseas just sort of deepened every step of the program.
And what was the most challenging part about the programs, and what strategies did you and your classmates develop to try and address those challenges?
Well, I guess it being a master's level program, there is the rigor that one would expect. So, but in a good way, I think being able to rise to the occasion and challenge oneself. I mean, just personally, that's a cool thing. Online learning, I was pleasantly surprised because I thought that it might seem remote and detached, but there were a number of different ways for us to connect and collaborate in a way that in this sort of a non-standard environment that many of us find ourselves still working in today and through the pandemic was actually an excellent way to stay connected. So that was a challenge that almost solved itself through the functional aspects. Other than that, from a strategy standpoint, I think, again, that the cohort model really allowed us to support each other because everybody's going to run into a place where they need a sounding board, support, ideas beyond our own little frames or selves. So those were some of the key strategies. And if I may, you hadn't specifically asked me about the faculty, but professors were tremendously flexible. And I think that was another really important strategic element, was being able to reach out and get support and individual input where needed.
Right. Robin, any questions or comments from people online?
I
Feel free
don't
to
see any-
ask Anne questions.
Yes, absolutely, for our attendees. I have a question, Anne. So when I came into the program, I had been out of school for a very long time. How did you find returning to an academic, situation after being out of school for a while? How was that transition for you?
Well, I think key to that has been the flexibility of the program. Honestly, I work full time. In addition to my work with Aeris, I have my own practice looking at different kinds of fixed income investments for socially responsible and impact investors. So I'm busy. I thought I was busy before,
Wow.
but so it wasn't like being an undergrad. The flexibility was really key, and I'm one of those candidates Michael mentioned who is in fact taking it out over a 24-month period, so that I'm able to take a few more courses together when I have a bit more time, and then stretch things out a bit more to let me dedicate myself to, my range of duties and responsibilities. So I have found it actually more flexible and more integratable with the rest of my life than perhaps I might have thought.
That's excellent. Yes, I found the same thing. Very rigorous for sure, but the faculty are really what makes it work. And the time that they take and how they work with you on your project, and because the projects are real life and stuff doesn't always work out, and frequently, most often it doesn't work out. And so you have to figure out, okay, how do we, tweak and figure out the next steps and move forward in your project. And they were just wonderfully supportive, and they've been there and done that many times before. So having their guidance was really terrific.
Absolutely.
So I don't see anyone else asking questions here of Anne or Michael.
All right. Well, good. We're at about our time that we had planned for this. So thank you for attending. I can just for a minute, go back to the slide with addresses on it. And encourage anyone to be in touch if they haven't already. Feel free to ask additional questions. But thank you for joining us today, and look forward to hearing from you, and hope you choose to apply to the program. Thanks for joining. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.